I mean, I'm sure that most people are familiar, at least a little bit of what's going on.
Yeah.
But I think what we probably need to talk about the most is kind of the backstory a little bit so that people understand, because too often, kind of how, you and I have talked about in the past, whenever there's a shooting, for example, like a police officer shoots someone.
Yeah.
Automatically, especially if that cop is white and the person that they shot is black, automatically you're going to have people taking sides before any details come out.
Yep.
And I hate when that happens, because until you know actually the story of what happened, you really shouldn't pick sides like that. And I feel like that's going on a lot right now with Israel and Palestine, where it seems like if you consider yourself a Republican or a conservative, then you feel like you have to support Israel.
Mm-hmm.
If you consider yourself a liberal Democrat, then you have to support Hamas and Hezbollah and Palestine, and now Iran also. And I want to maybe address some of these things so that people don't feel like they have to just, because my team says this side's the right one, that they have to deal with that.
Before you do, go into kind of what your I guess if we wanted to call it your formal opinion on what's going on.
Well, if you, I think you can kind of break it down in a couple different categories. One is what's happening right now, the conflict that's happening right now in the news.
Yes.
And then there's the historical context of how these groups of people who are very fundamentally at odds with each other are living in the same area.
Yep.
And then there's also the historical, not historical, but the religious aspect of it. So we're talking about what's going on actually right now. Like you said, the loss of human life, especially when it's innocent people, that's awful. And I felt the same way whenever Ukraine first started. It's not the idea of, well, who's right, who's wrong. In war, hardly ever is one side 100% right and the other side's 100% wrong. Yeah. Very rarely does that ever happen. If you think about any argument you've ever had with a significant other, usually there's a little bit of fault on both sides, and especially when you have a region like this that's been at odds for so long, been at war for so long, it's almost impossible for either side to claim innocence.
Right.
Both sides are responsible for doing things they probably shouldn't have done. And in this one, you have Israel, the nation, country of Israel, that is, people want to call it an apartheid state, which is basically means that if you're not Jewish, if you're not, whether you view it as a religion or you view it as a race, there are genetically, ethnically people who are Jewish, but then anybody can convert to Judaism and be, accepted. Biblically, that's referred to as Gentiles. They were not born Jews, but became Jewish. But basically the apartheid state idea that especially the left will paint the picture as is that if you're not Jewish, if you're not a part of that, then you have no rights, basically. And that's not really true. I believe that's a very unfair way of labeling it. But Israel is a nation that was formed by the United Nations. The Great Britain, England was the main ones who pushed for it. At the end of World War II, World War II ended in 1946, 1947, that time period. Basically, again, Britain leading the way, and the United Nations saying, we need a place for these Jews that have been pushed out of their homes by the Nazis. We need a safe place for them to be. And so the United Nations carved out this section of the original Holy Lands and made a modern day Israel.
Yep.
But that area of the world has been for Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, that's the Holy Lands. There were crusades that were fought over it. The Romans occupied it for a while. Byzantines occupied it. So many people have occupied those lands that it's really hard to say whose land it is because so many different people have occupied it over the years.
Okay.
But Muslims, Christians, and, well, I'm going to leave Christians out of it because they're not actively involved right now in this. But Islam, Muslims, and Jews, they both have claim to that land both historically because they've lived there, and they both have claim to that land through their religion. That is their holy land. And so when us in the United Nations went in and basically said, hey, we're giving this land to a group of people, we created a situation that I don't know why leadership at the time couldn't see the problem there, that was going to cause in the future. But that's what happened. So now you have in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, you have Palestinians who are predominantly Muslim, who are living in this area along with Jews, and it's completely surrounded by modern day Israel. And so for my entire life, and I know as far back as the 70s, but even probably before that, there have been armed conflict with Israel and the Palestinians, people living in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Another problem that Israel has is that they have Egypt who borders them. They've got Syria that borders them, Jordan that borders them, Lebanon that borders them, all predominantly Muslim countries. And so they are always kind of in the defensive. And because we put them there, again, us and the United Nations, we've given a lot of money to them over the years for their defense. The Iron, what's it called?
Iron Dome.
Yeah, that thing. That was bought by U.S. taxpayers, and so we've been funding them for their defense because we put them there and they're constantly surrounded, and because we use that as an ally in that region. A way for us to have military, we can have military, we can send our military there to train with the Israelis and be in a friendly country surrounded in the Middle East where we want to keep eyes on. So it's been a mutually beneficial system for a while. But what's happened now is that Iran, the Obama administration gave Iran about $6 billion, I think it was, or I think it's been up to about $6 billion by this point now. I think it started under him, just like 1 billion, but anyway, it's up to like $6 billion now that we've given to Iran. And I haven't seen the classified documents, so I don't know for sure, but what it appears is that Iran then gave a portion or a large part of that money to Hamas and Hezbollah, which are terrorist organizations that want to destroy Israel. And so now we have terrorist groups who are using taxpayer money to fight against a country that we give taxpayer money to for defense. So we're funding both sides, whether it's intentional or not, we are. And that's kind of the situation that we're in right now. And that's one reason why it's real bad, in my opinion, for us, is because it's draining for us and we're supporting both sides, and because of just the massive loss of life, because this isn't just a normal little skirmish that they have. That's been going on forever. Seriously, my whole life, I've been hearing about the Gaza Strip, the West Bank fighting at the Gaza Strip, but this one seems to be worse. They are, there was a group that went through some Hamas militants that went through and beheaded some children and stuff like that. This one seems to be worse. But anyway, I'll let you go ahead. I won't. I'll stop for a second before I get into the religious aspect of it. But
so all I'll say is, like, on the things that I could confirm, the only children I saw dead were being pulled out of the rubble in Gaza. They were Muslim children.
How about that? The hospital that got hit.
So the hospital was one, but then just other buildings. Okay. But the hospital thing, last I heard on that was a misfire from Hamas that I guess hit the parking lot. But again, that's all hearsay. I don't even think they hit the building. But again, the kid stuff I'm seeing is casualties of war, of them